Hi, welcome to Channel Shift. I'm Rob D'Amico alongside Michelle Rahal, and now a little NASCAR talk because, man, is there a lot going on in the world of NASCAR. Let's kick it off with everything with the Jeremy Mayfield saga. We got a lot of stuff going on there. The court's now back in court. NASCAR is now trying to repeal the decision that the judge made. Talk about that a little bit because Mayfield looks to have the upper hand here.
He looks to have the upper hand, but he doesn't have the money to have the upper hand, and the deal is NASCAR does. What they've done, NASCAR has put themselves in a position to where they want to fight this because they don't want to admit that they may have a flawed drug testing system. They consider themselves unique, that it's a very fast sport, much more dangerous than performance-enhancing drugs and things like that. But short of, the judge, when you go into a situation like this, a judge can look at this, a smart judge, and say, you know what? You've got one guy over here that you have destroyed his career. No matter what happens, he's destroyed now. And you've got the 12 disciples. You've got a huge battery of lawyers on your side. And you intend to beat him to death. But your system may be flawed. You didn't send those samples off to 2 separate labs. You sent them to 1 lab. And I think that personally, unless they can prove that Jeremy Mayfield is breaking bad and is running a meth lab, I think NASCAR is going to lose.
Well, I look at the overall situation. These guys may have to change their policy to go take A to one facility and B to another facility to make sure it's right. The problem is it takes 4 to 5 days, and you got guys in these cars, 42 other guys that Jeremy Mayfield tested positive on their test. Guess what? We need to pull them out of the car because it's much too dangerous for the other 42 drivers out there.
Okay, so everybody else, including Jimmy Johnson, who takes allergy medication, which will test positive for meth, for morphine, God knows what else. Zantac will do that. Every driver out there has to worry about an instant test because if they pull them out of the car, and here's a scenario for you, Tony Stewart's leading the points. He tests positive for anything that they call a banned substance. I've yet to see a list, by the way. They pull him out of the car. He loses the championship because of it. You think there's going to be a lawsuit there? I think so.
No, I agree with you. There is going to be a huge lawsuit. But then I also look at the side where the judge says, okay, Jeremy Mayfield's allowed to race. Okay, NASCAR goes out and says, all right, he comes to the track. We're going to test him again. The problem is the test takes 4 to 5 days. Let's say you get there on a Thursday. You're not going to have the test done. And even if they could get it done in a day or two, what happens to say if he gets there Thursday, Saturday, he doesn't take something by Sunday, he's all drugged up again on something, allegedly. I'm just saying that this is a possibility. I'm not saying that's what he does. But there's those cases as well. How do they get this down and figure it all out?
I don't know, and neither do they.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. What you're going to have 12 people sitting on a jury who are going to be challenged with the concept and with the opinion of reasonable doubt. And when that happens, the best scenario that I can think of is that from a PR perspective right now, they need to be sitting down with Mayfield and talking to him and put the lawyers aside for a while and get into the smoky dark room, have a few cigars and go, we got a problem here, let's try to fix this together. There has to be, if there could possibly be a win-win. Brian France says he's got irrefutable evidence. I have never heard of such a thing outside of a video from a store shooting or something like that, and even that can be beaten. There's no such thing. When you get into a courtroom, ladies and gentlemen, truth is an abstract. It is an abstract. It's whatever you're being pitched. It's a great justice system we have in the United States. Beats them all, trumps them all. But right now, you're in a civil case, and NASCAR is going to have to show their hand. They're going to have to show more in a civil case than they would if it were a criminal trial.
One thing is true, everyone, NFL, Major League Baseball, and all these big sports are going to be watching this case, no doubt about it. All right, let me switch gears a little bit here. Danica to NASCAR. Danica Patrick in the IRL right now, but the IRL, Tony George is ousted, kicked out, off the board, only going to be able to run his Vision Racing team in the IRL. I think that's great. But does that maybe skew her a little bit more towards NASCAR now that that's taken place?
Initially, probably yes. If they can find someone that will buy the series, or if the people that are now in charge, who have always been in charge, as opposed to Tony George himself, I mean, they've got to be able to assure her, and this is just from her perspective, that there is a viable series out there that she can run and win the Indy 500, because that is what this is all about in her world. If she can win the Indy 500, then she becomes a really viable commodity for NASCAR. Outside of that, she's running 20th place, 30th place. It'd be a shock of a lifetime for her.
All right, and in NASCAR, you have 3, 4-car teams, the big dominant teams out there, the super teams as we like to call them. Now we're looking at Michael Waltrip picking up Martin Truex Jr. to drive the number 56 for the Napa Toyota over on his team, giving him a 4-car team with his other ventures with Ambrose, David Rudiman, Michael Waltrip for that matter, now Martin Truex Jr. This is a really big team. They're heading towards that Hendrick, Joe Gibbs, the Roush Racings. This is a big deal for these guys.
Michael Waltrip has proven that he is a much better team owner than he ever was a driver, and I don't mean that offensively, but that is, something that either you're good at racing or you're not. You're good at ownership or you're not. He appears to be very good at it, and Martin Truex, I think, did the smartest thing he possibly could do. He is an alpha driver. He's on a team with Montoya. Montoya's mentality is, I'm Formula One, I'm number one. There's a number one, and that's that. That's Montoya. So where does Truex go? Truex has to go somewhere where he feels like he's got a home and he's got the ability to share information and that he's not being placed in second. And at Michael Waltrip Racing, he's a top dog.
Yeah, he will be a top dog, no doubt about it. And I'm not saying anything bad about any of the other drivers. He brings that caliber of racing automatically just from being racing at the DEI.
He's a front runner. He is a front runner. He deserves the equipment. And I think Montoya is a front runner. But Montoya has a whole different way of looking and viewing this entire situation that we call NASCAR than anyone else. His is Formula One style. It is win a championship. That's what it's all about.
It's funny you bring that up because I also look at a team like Red Bull. You have Brian Vickers and Scott Speed, these guys over there.
Oh, cats and dogs.
In the Nationwide Series, get into a little scuffle on the track there, take each other out of finishing top fives. And I had the opportunity to talk to Brian Vickers, and Brian told me that they still have not talked about that situation. Brian did go up to him after the race and got in his face and said some things, but to this day, Scott Speed has not called him, talked to him, none of that.
It's Formula One.
That is so Formula One style.
It's the Formula One mentality because he just doesn't care. He doesn't care what Vickers thinks. And unfortunately, Vickers is from that kumbaya world that we think is NASCAR. That's not what's going on behind the scenes. These guys go up and shake hands, kiss, make up. Well, that's coming out of the hauler, man. That's not what's really happening. That's not what's really happening. Speed could care less. Speed doesn't care at all. That's why I made the joke about, hey, maybe we can go to counseling.
But I look at, what's going on. Brian Vickers is a guy who's,
He's taken a few people out himself.
Oh, he has. There's no doubt. I mean, he took out teammates in the past to get a win. I get all that, and that's part of it. But I also look at, as a team, it's not good for the team, though. They're not going to be sharing the information, and I think that's what is hurting Scott Speed right now. Scott Speed needs all the information possible that he can get and gain to become a NASCAR driver because he's coming from those, very traction-controlled cars, now going into something that is like driving on ice.
It's all true, and Vickers has a point. He's not doing that. Speed's not doing that well in NASCAR at the moment. But you know what? Montoya didn't set the world on fire either. Year 1 and 2, year 3, he's in the chase. So the way I look at it is that mentality that Scott Speed's got, at least he's relaxed. Vickers is a little more wound up, and let's not kid ourselves. Dietrich Mateschitz that owns Red Bull. That is Scott Speed's boy. That's that.
No doubt about that. All right, enough NASCAR talk for now, but we'll continue this at another time. For Michelle Ray Hall, I'm Rob D'Amico. Thank you for watching.